Well, what a pleasure to be able to get together with all of my siblings to talk about music. There's four of us, and before we get into music, can I just tell a really quick story? This just popped in my head, but remember when we were growing up and people would say to our dad, "How many children do you have?" And he would say, "I have three sons, and they each have a sister." And about half the time, people would say, "Oh, six, how lovely." He'd say, "No, I have three sons, and they each have a sister." I was one. I remember anyway. All four of us ended up going into music, and I just think that's pretty unusual these days, and thought it'd be cool to get together and just chat about that. Jane, you have a sense of what pushed you in that direction?
Well, there's no doubt for me that it was Dad playing the piano at home all the time, every day, either by ear or out of those books, everybody's favorite piano pieces. And he would play the Moonlight Sonata and Clair de Lune and all those famous classics. And I just wanted to play those same pieces. And so Mom had started giving me piano lessons when I was 4 years old. And later I got a formal teacher. And so he created that love of all those beautiful pieces, and he played them so feelingly, you might say. So I took piano all along, and in the sixth grade, I got invited to accompany the school chorus in their concerts, and so I got started accompanying. And then in 10th grade, I started taking organ lessons, and that made me see that music could be a calling and a profession. And so that I just never looked back from the time I started taking organ. I thought, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And it's been really rewarding.
Well, in my case, it's somewhat similar. For some reason, you got to start a year before me. I didn't start piano until I was 5. And but I remember I have just such a clear memory of our dad walking home, and he had these little habits. He'd pull one weed walking up the sidewalk, always one, never two or whatever. And he'd walk in, he'd sit down at the piano, and he would play with astonishing gusto and joy, And I think that was a huge influence on I guess, on all of us. It certainly was on me. And all my life, our mother kept saying to me, that's what I either wanted to be, a musician or a doctor. So I went to college. I did like a double major in pre-med and music. But like everybody else, I ended up, well, not everybody else in college, but everybody else in this family, I ended up doing music. Kind of interesting. What do you think, Dave?
Well, I think I started with the music because my two older siblings were paving the road with the piano lessons, and we were taking lessons from the church organist, and there was always church choir, music at church, and that was a big influence on steering us all in the direction of music. And then I didn't end up really sticking with the piano. I took up the saxophone when I was in elementary school, and headed off in the direction of jazz. And of course, continuing throughout my life, singing in choirs and singing in opera choruses and stuff like that. So a different angle on the music business than the rest of the family.
How about you, Jonathan?
Well, when I was 3, I used to sit in church with Mom because all the rest of you were singing in the choir. This is Church on the Green in Morristown, New Jersey. And Mom and I would sit in the pew. And the first little anecdote to tell you about that is I was always embarrassed by it because I thought she was singing louder than the rest of the congregation. Only because I was right next to her, of course, but she loved to sing, which is really not a bad thing at all. And then she tells the story that when I was 3, that I leaned over to her one day and said, when I grow up, I'm going to be an organer. And I never changed my mind. All my growing up years, it never dawned on me that I'd do anything other than that. I thought I would do things in addition to that. And like you, Herb, I was pre-med in college. And but all that's aside. I never thought I would not be an organist. And then about the same age, 4, 5, 6, I would accompany Jane to church when she'd go practice the organ. And somehow I was her protector in this big, huge building, actually. And everybody would say, how's he going to protect you? And Mom would say, well, he can always call 911 if there's an emergency. And so I'd go and I'd sit and listen to Jane play, because in those days you didn't go read, and you certainly didn't do the internet. And I'd ask her questions, and I'd constantly be asking questions about, why are you using this? What does this stop mean? What do these numbers mean? And I'd be fascinated. So that was the organ side of things. But at home, being the youngest of 4 siblings, of 3 siblings, youngest of 4 kids, and the fact that both Mom and Dad played the piano, that meant there were 6 people in the house vying to play one piano. And the opposite of almost every story I've ever heard from any family, we actually used to argue as to who got to play next. And long before I started when I was 4 with Jane as my teacher, and I would sit at the top of the keyboard, at the top of the bench, and play. There were 3 or 4 dead notes at the very top of the piano for some reason. And I'd play on those, and while Dad was playing, and I was pretending that I was actually part of the whole endeavor of making music. So again, it's the connection to Dad's love of the piano, and then Mom's love of singing, and the church, and siblings.
Well, it's interesting that we're both alike and different, isn't it, in that way? And the other thing I think we share is a love of Bach. And 2 of we 4, have started Bach groups, which I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of Jonathan for being the other person who did that. And all 4 of us Jane plays all those great organ works, as does Jonathan. And Dave plays those flute sonatas of all those Baroque people, including Bach. In fact, you played a Brandenburg with me once, Dave. But tell us about what Bach means to you, Jonathan.
Bach has a soul connection. I've always felt, maybe selfishly, that we in the church music world have a little bit of an edge on Bach, because Bach's life was also very much in the church, and so it's the intellectual piece that no one was doing what he did before him, and probably you could say no one did it after either. But the soul connection and the spiritual connection all spoke to me, and continues to speak to me and enrich me, and to this day I look forward to my morning practice sessions, sitting down and learning a new piece of Bach. And so that's it for me.
In my case, I remember just being slack-jawed with amazement over Bach fugues when I was in about high school, and began to understand how they were put together, and the astonishing craftsmanship, even while they were so beautiful melodically and so interesting harmonically. And that kind of set me on a lifelong path. Right after graduate school, I started studying with Helmut Rilling, who was the first person to record all the works of Bach, the choral works of Bach, a huge achievement. And he was one of the early people in the Baroque revival who began to analyze Bach's music from a kind of musical and theological point of view. And that opened just a universe of new possibilities to me. And I've been immersing myself in that for, oh gee whiz, 35 years or something. It's what a pleasure. It's inexhaustible. Everything you learn, there's more. Wow. So I guess I would say that's how I got into Bach. Dave, how about you?
Well, I enjoy playing Bach on several instruments and singing it. And we had a friend in high school who was a big lover of Bach. And he made an interesting comment one time. He said, the great thing about Bach is the music is so good, architecturally, structurally, that you can't ruin it. As long as you play the right notes, the music will come through somehow.
Yeah, you can play it in any tempo almost.
Yeah, clearly, you strive to do more than just play the right notes. But so I've found that I love, my latest thing is I've got these transcriptions of the Bach cello suites, solo cello suites for clarinet, and I just love those. I mean, I play them almost every day. And I'm not a great clarinet player, but it's very meaningful to me. It's a special experience.
Okay, Jane, tell us your entree to Bach, because I know you play so many of his works.
I do. I feel like it was the organ that led me to Bach rather than the other way around. But what would the organ be without Bach? I mean, when I go to an organ recital and the person doesn't play Bach, I feel unfulfilled. Like, why bother play an organ recital if there's no Bach on it, right?
I'm completely with you.
Yeah. Plus, that's how I judge whether it's a good organist and whether it's a good organ, by how the Bach goes. But, excuse me for jiggling the computer. A couple of special things about particular Bach music. In graduate school, I remember going into the listening room where the LP record players were, and on Good Friday, and listening to the St. Matthew Passion.
Wow.
with the lyrics. It was the first time I'd ever listened to it, and I followed the lyrics for the whole 3 hours and sat there, and I felt like it changed my life. And ever since then, that's been my tradition, is to listen to the St. Matthew Passion on Good Friday, or possibly over a couple of days. And it's something that I just treasure. The other thing, besides all the great Bach organ fugues, is I'm passionately in love with the Goldberg variations. I've been fascinated with them for over 10 years, and I retired right a little bit after the pandemic started. And I started seriously learning them on the piano. So I can say I haven't mastered them, but I've learned to play them. And it's kind of really kept me sane through the pandemic. So
yeah, musicians have a wonderful balm or salve or something with music. It's a blessing.
Yeah.
So all right. So listen, we spoke about this ever so briefly before we started chatting together. And so let's agree to do this. Let's all play one of the Goldberg variations, and we'll do it on 4 different instruments, and we'll put them together, and we'll put them at the end of this little chat. So Dave will play if you will, the theme. All right, Dave. Are you going to do it on flute or clarinet or sax or what?
Flute.
Okay, and then that's followed by the aria in the beginning, and I'll do that on piano. Okay, and then Jonathan, you have that wonderful harpsichord in your house.
Yeah, I'm going to do a harpsichord version with for movement number 16, which is quite sort of Ouverture-esque. Has a good harpsichord piece.
Yeah.
Good. And then Jane, you have that nice organ in your church, and you'll play one of the variations.
I'll play number 13, which has a nice kind of soloistic line that almost is reminiscent of a obligato aria from St. Matthew Passion, for instance.
Okay. Well, this has been great talking with you all about our musical love that we all share together. It's a wonderful thread within our family, and I'm looking forward to putting together these 4 parts of the Goldberg variations and finishing this little video with that information. Thank you all.
Thank you.